Hello children, let me welcome you to the virtual class of the Brihan Mumbai Mahanagar Palika. My name is Shraddha teacher. Children, we are in the middle of this COVID-19 pandemic, and because of that we are not able to go to school, but that doesn't mean we are going to stop learning. So we are going to do many lessons which are very interesting from your textbook through the virtual class here. So let us do a lesson in English today. Children, let us start a new lesson in standard 5th, and the subject is scholarship English. Okay, and today we will be doing lesson number 1.8, and the name of the lesson is figurative words. So this is our topic for today. Now let us try and understand what the meaning of figurative words are. Now you are in standard 5 this year, and since you're doing scholarship, you're going to learn this very important part of English language, which especially appears in poetry. Now as you go up to the higher classes, you will see that you will have exercises based on figurative speech for all the poems which are there in your textbook. Okay, so let us try and understand what figurative speech means and what are the common figurative speeches that we can learn during your school days, that is up to standard 10th, and then we will also try and do certain exercises based on figurative words. So let us start by understanding what are figurative words, or what is figure of speech. So figurative words, they are also called as figures of speech. So a figure of speech is generally used in poetry. When I say generally, means most of the times you will find it in poetry. You can also see it sometimes in some prose lessons. Okay, then you will see that it adds beauty to the poem. So why are figurative words used, or why is figure of speech used in poems? To add beauty to the poem, to make the poem more beautiful to listen to and to read. Then it is intentionally different from the normal manner of speech. So purposefully, that is deliberately, intentionally, they have made this figure of speech a little different from the normal manner of speech. Now we all know that the words which are used in poems, or the words which are used in poetry, are different from the words which are used in prose, isn't it? In prose we have very formal language, but in poetry sometimes we have very flowery and very beautiful words. So in the same way, figure of speech is also intentionally different from the normal manner of speech that we use. And we will also see that it creates a powerful and pleasing effect on the reader. So figure of speech has got a very powerful as well as pleasing effect. So you will remember these words that you read, and also you will become happy when you read these words. So this is all the meaning of figure of speech for you. There are many different figures of speech, like I told you. Okay, so now let us see which are the different figures of speech. You have many more figures of speech also. Okay, these are just some of them which you learn at school level. So we have alliteration, we have simile, we have personification, irony, onomatopoeia, metaphor, hyperbole. Now remember, the spelling is hyperbole. So you might tend to think that it is hyperbole or it is hyperbole, but it is not that, it is hyperbole. Okay, and then you have pun, pun, pun. So these are the common figures of speech that you will be able to learn in the various poems that you're there in your book. Now we have an additional one also in your exercise in the scholarship textbook, and that is exclamation. So we will see that also. So now what we will try and do is, we will try and take a look at each of these figures of speech, okay, in short, because the main aim or the main focus of our scholarship videos is what? It is to try and solve questions. Okay, but before solving the questions, you should have some knowledge about the topic. So come on, let us try and understand a few points, or let us try and quickly understand in short what the meaning of all these figures of speech are, and we will also try and solve some examples. So are you ready? Come on, let's start. And remember, after we try and understand, after we have learned what the meaning of all these figures of speech are, we are going to solve questions based on them. Okay, so chalo, let's go and let's start with the first one, that is alliteration. Now alliteration is when there is a repetition of a sound within a phrase or a sentence. And alliteration is usually, children, in the first sound of a word, and it is usually the sound of a consonant letter. Consonants, you know na, that the letters of the alphabet are divided into vowels and consonants. So you have A, E, I, O, U, which are the vowels, and the remaining are the consonants. So alliteration is when there is a repetition sound, repeated. When sound of a consonant is repeated, either in a beginning of a word or in a sentence, then that is an example of alliteration. The figurative words there is alliteration, or the figure of speech there is alliteration. Alright, so when I show you this example, you will understand. So it is what? It is a repetition of sound. Let us look at some examples now here. So see, this is an example sentence. Let me read it for you. So when I'm reading it, try to listen carefully and try to find out where the sound is being repeated. So the sentence is, she sells sea shells by the seashore. Have you heard what I said? Now let us see which sounds were repeated here. So the sound of the sh in the she is repeated in the sh sound of the shells, and also in the sh sound of the shore. So see how the sound is repeated? Sh, sh, sh. The sound is repeated. There is also one more sound which is repeated. That is the sound of s, the sound of the letter S, which comes in cells, see, and again see. So this is an example of alliteration where certain sounds are repeated in a sentence. Okay, so this was the first figure of speech for us. Let us take a look at some more examples of alliteration. So see here, we have these sentences: epic elephants eat edible eggs. Sheila's son sung solo. He's been known to frequently follow football. So now let us see which sounds are repeated. So epic elephants eat edible eggs. The s sound, okay, but here it is sh. In this you will have the s sound. So son sung solo, repetition of the s sound. The first word, the sound is not s, it has been marked by mistake, it is sh, Sheila. Okay, so we take the remaining three: sons sung solo. Then you know the next one, he's been known to frequently follow football. So the sound of the letter F, that is f sound. So these are all examples of alliteration. So have you understood, children, what the meaning of alliteration is? Now let us move on quickly and go to the next figure of speech, which is repetition. Now see, this is so simple to understand. When I say repetition, it comes from the word repeat. So it means when anything is repeated, then it is repetition. So anything will be repeated means what will be repeated in a poem? Words will be repeated, because a poem is made up of stanzas, and these stanzas are made up of words. So when words are repeated in order to make a stronger impact on the reader, then that is repetition. For example, the people of this city deserve a mayor they can trust, a mayor they can respect, a mayor they can count on. So here the word mayor, mayor, mayor is repeated. Look at the other example here. To grandma's we go. To grandma's we go. Sitting, yawning, snoring. To grandma's we go. To grandma's we go. Waiting, squabbling, maddening. So see the line, to grandma's we go, to grandma's we go is repeated so many times, 4 times. Okay, so this is an example of repetition. Let us move on and look at the next figure of speech, that is personification. Now this comes from the word person. So person means what? People like you and me. Okay, so personification comes from personifying, which means giving human characteristics to non-human things. So people, things which are not human, which are not human beings, which are not boys and girls and men and women, giving these things qualities of boys and girls and men and women, that is human qualities, is called as personification. So what is personification? Giving human characteristics like laughing, smiling, talking, etc. to non-human living things. Okay, let us take a look at some examples. The thunder roared in the evening sky. So thunder is something which happens when the clouds they clash with each other. Okay, they crash against each other and there's this big sound which is called as thunder. It is said that the thunder roared. Now see, roaring cannot be done by thunder. The sound could sound like it is roaring, but it is not actually roaring. Then who roars? Human beings can roar, or animals also can roar. So the human characteristic or the animal characteristic of roaring is given to thunder. So it is an example of personification. Let us take a look at one more example here. See, the leaves danced across the lawn. Now you know dancing. Can leaves dance, children? Leaves cannot dance. Then who can dance? Human beings can dance. So the human characteristic of dancing is given to the leaves. So this is an example of personification. Okay, let us move on and let us look at the examples and meaning of the figure of speech simile. See, it is not smiles, okay? There is an I between the S and the M. So it is simile. So a simile is a comparison of two things using the words like or as. So when you compare two things, when you pick up two things and decide this is good or this is good, which is better, that is called as comparison. See, when you want to buy clothes, what do? You go to a shop and you select 2-3 clothes and you wear them and then you compare by looking into the mirror. Which looks better on me, which doesn't look so good, and then you decide what to buy, isn't it? So a simile means comparison between two words, but using the words like and as. So when you use like and as to compare two things, then that is an example of simile. So let us see an example. See, as sweet as honey. So if you say she sings or she is as sweet as honey, means she is very sweet. How sweet she is? She is as sweet as honey. So see, you're comparing someone with honey. Okay? Or look here, you can say racing like a frightened rabbit. So how is he racing like? So the way he's running is being compared to the way a frightened rabbit runs. So this also is an example of simile. Then you have the next figure of speech, which is very much like simile, a little different. Why it is a little different and why it is very much like simile, let me tell you. Because metaphor is also comparison. Simile was comparison using the words as and like, and metaphor is the comparison of two things which are not at all similar, unlike things, two very different things, using words such as is, are, was, were. So when you compare two things which are not at all same, which do not have any common qualities, but you use the words is, are, was and were to compare them, then it is called as metaphor. Let's take a look at this example. He was a walking encyclopedia. So what is an encyclopedia? An encyclopedia is a kind of a dictionary where there are lots of pictures and there are descriptions also of many things. Okay, so he was a walking encyclopedia means what? Just like an encyclopedia has information about everything which is there in this world, in the same way, he also had information about many things in this world. So he was a walking encyclopedia. Okay, so the comparison of two unlike things using words such as is, are, was, were is called as what? It is called as a metaphor. Okay, coming to the next we will see some examples on metaphor. So you have, the book was a passport to adventure. So the book was so thrilling that it was almost like being in an adventure. So the book was a passport to adventure, in which what are you doing? You're comparing the book with a passport. You are what you eat. So you're comparing a person to what that person eats. That means the food that that person eats. So you are the food that you eat. Her hair was silk. So her hair is being compared to what? It is being compared to silk, means it is so soft. It was so shiny that it was like silk. Okay, so these are some examples of metaphor. Now let us look at the next one, the figure of speech. What did I say? How do you read this word? How do you pronounce this word? You say hyperbole. Hyperbole. Okay, so let us look at some examples of hyperbole here. So hyperbole is a figure of speech which is an exaggeration. Exaggeration means what? Saying too much about something. We say na in Hindi, किसी चीज को बढ़ा चढ़ा के बोलना. Okay, or you also say making a mountain out of a molehill. So it is a small mole, it is a small piece, but you described it in such a way that someone will feel that it is a big mountain. So that is exaggeration. So what is hyperbole? Hyperbole is a figure of speech where an exaggeration is used. Okay, for example, look at the first example. I nearly died laughing. So it is an exaggeration. How is it an exaggeration or an extreme way? See, died laughing or 1,000 times. Okay, died laughing. So died laughing means, see, can you ever die laughing? So here you will see Donald Duck laughing. But will he ever die because of this laughing? No. So you are exaggerating. Then I have tried 1,000 times. How many times I tried? 1,000. So can you imagine someone trying 1,000 times? Like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 100, 200, 300. Will you try so many times? I don't think you will try so many times. You will try 3 times, 4 times, 5 times and then you will give up. Okay? So it is exaggeration. Then when you say, I have a mountain of homework. See, mountain of homework means I have too much homework. It doesn't have anything to do with a mountain. A mountain is so high. Can you have that much of homework? No. So it is an example of exaggeration. That is, it is an example of hyperbole. Okay, children, let us look at the next one, that is onomatopoeia. Now what is onomatopoeia? Words that imitate the sounds that they describe. So when you say the word, it will feel as if you're making that sound. Alright, so then that is an example of onomatopoeia. Let us see some examples. So see, buzz. What is buzz? Buzz is the sound that a bee makes, and the sound also sounds like buzz. When the bee comes close to your ears and it moves around, what sound do you hear? You hear the sound buzz. So the word buzz is an example of onomatopoeia. Splash is an example of onomatopoeia. When you jump into a puddle of water, what is the sound which comes out? Splash. Okay, so that is an example of onomatopoeia. Then these are all the other examples. So related to water, you have the sound splash. Related to animals, you have the sound oink for pigs. You have mew for cat. You have moo for cows. Okay? When collision means when two things ram against each other, when they bang against each other. For example, when you clap, you hear the sound of the clap. Okay? Then you have whisper. See, when you talk very softly, what do? You say whisper, whisper, whisper. You speak like this, okay? So that is whisper. Then you have pop, sound related to air. Pop, when you open the bottle of, you can say Pepsi or whatever, the sound which comes is pop. So these are all examples of onomatopoeia. Then the last one that we have is exclamation. So you all know about the exclamation mark that we have learnt. Okay, so in this device, the exclamatory form is used to draw greater attention to a point. So the exclamation mark is used. Why? In order to highlight a particular point. Look at the various examples. I laughed so hard that I cried. He couldn't believe that he won the race. So this is the easiest, I think, of all the figures of speech that we have learned till now. Because whenever you see the exclamation mark, you know that it is exclamation. Alright children, so this was part 1 of our video where we tried to understand the meaning of all these figures of speech or what all these figurative words mean. Now we go to the next part of our video where we try and solve certain questions based on this exercise. Now let us look at the paper pattern that we have. So we have just one question pattern. You're supposed to identify the figures of speech in the line given below. Okay, so this is one common pattern which will come up as far as figures of speech are concerned. So let us try and understand, look at the various examples. So we are all going to look at pattern 1 now. There's just one pattern here. Before we go here, let me once again remind you, like I always do, that whenever I come up with a question, you're supposed to pause the video and try to figure out the answers yourself and then play the video again to see whether your answer is correct and when it matches with mine. Alright, so come on, let's start taking a look at the questions. Here comes question number 1. Thou walkest silent as night. Okay, so which is the figure of speech here? Is it 1 hyperbole? Is it 2 simile? 3 alliteration? Or 4 exclamation? So which is the figure of speech here? Yes, it is the second one, simile. Why? Because the word as is used in order to compare the walk to the silence of the night. So walk is compared to the silence of the night using the word as. Okay, coming to the question number 2. The yellow flowers smiled at me. Now all of you must be knowing that flowers, can they smile? Of course not. So let's see what are the options that are given to us. So you have 1 simile, 2 repetition, 3 personification, 4 onomatopoeia. So which is the answer? Yes, it is answer number 3, personification. And what is the explanation that you can give? Flowers are said to be smiling, and smiling is a human quality. Human beings can smile. Okay, flowers or fruits or trees cannot smile. Question number 3. It cost me endless days of pain. Endless days of pain. Okay, that means my pain did not end at all. So does this give you a clue? Let's see the options. So is it 1 hyperbole, 2 personification, 3 metaphor, 4 repetition? Which is it? It is the first one, hyperbole. Why? Because too much of pain. So the pain is said to be endless. The pain is exaggerated. So it is hyperbole. Moving on to question 4. The river is life to these people. So what is the figure of speech here? Is it hyperbole, personification, alliteration, or metaphor? So the river is life to these people. So what is happening here? It is answer number 4, because river is compared to life. The river is life, they say. So river is being compared to the life. Next, let's take a look at question number 5. Ye are the salt of the earth. And then there is an exclamation mark. So has this made your answer easy? I think so, yes. Now let us take a look at the options. You have 1 hyperbole, you have 2 simile, you have 3 alliteration, and 4 exclamation. So which one will you use here? Yes, exactly, you will say exclamation. Now children, why is it exclamation? Because a strong statement with an exclamation mark at the end. It is a very strong statement. Now, at this point, let me tell you one thing. In case there was another option for you also, that is, in case I tell you, find out 2 figures of speech in this particular sentence. So, which do you think the other figure of speech could be? Yes, it could be metaphor, because ye means you are the salt of the earth. So they're comparing you to the salt of the earth. So this could also be an example for metaphor. But since we do not have the option over here, and since we are supposed to choose only one answer, we are choosing exclamation. Okay children, let us move on and let us go to example number 6. I am repeating the pattern of the question with each new question because it is very important for you to understand the question. So identify the figure of speech in the line given below. The road, the arduous road. Yes, so this is also very simple. Why? Because some words are repeated. So what is it? Is it hyperbole? Is it simile? Is it repetition or personification? What do you think it is? Yes, it is a repetition. Why? Because the word road is repeated for effect. Okay, so these are 6 examples. Let us move on to the 7th one now. My teeth, like a snake's bare fangs. So here there is some kind of comparison between teeth and snake's bare fangs. So come on now, choose an option. So is it hyperbole? Is it simile, alliteration, or exclamation? Yes, it is option number 2, simile. Why? Because the teeth are compared to fangs of a snake. Now fangs also mean teeth of a snake, okay? The snake has got pointed teeth inside its mouth, and sometimes if it is a poisonous snake, it has got poison fangs also. So teeth are compared to fangs of a snake. Moving on to the next example, question number 8. It groaned and it moaned and it shrieked between the leaves. So there are some kind of sounds which are being produced here. The sound of groaning, the sound of moaning, the sound of shrieking. So it is an example of metaphor or simile or exclamation or onomatopoeia. What is it? It is an example of onomatopoeia. Why? Because the words groaned and moaned and shriek, they indicate sound. Okay, let us go on to question number 9. A strong man struggling with the storms of fate. So struggling with storms of fate. So let's see which it could be. So is it hyperbole? Is it simile, alliteration, or exclamation? Which is it? Yes, it is option number 3, alliteration. Why? Because the sound of the letter S is repeated in strong, struggling, and storms. Okay children, so see, I'm showing you many examples here because there is just one pattern for the question. Alright, So in case you get tired watching this, you can pause the video for some time or you can watch it later also. But since there is just one paper question pattern, I decided to show you maximum number of examples here. Coming to question number 10. She is as cunning as a fox. So now you have solved some examples also, you know the meaning also, so you all must have guessed that this one, it is not hyperbole, it is not alliteration, it is not exclamation, but it is option number 2, simile. Okay, so she is compared to a fox. Let's move on to question number 11. The moon veiled her face delicately. So when you veil your face, what do? You cover your face. So some people cover their face with a dupatta, some people cover their face with a shawl, and you must have seen some ladies, they cover their face with a sari. So the moon is said to be covering her face. So can the moon do that? Does the moon have a face? So let us see which figure of speech it could be. So is it personification, simile, alliteration, or exclamation? What is it? It is personification. Number 1. Why? Because the moon is given a human quality of veiling someone's face. Okay? Coming to the next example. Example number 12. He's so hungry, he could eat a camel. Look here now. Can you be so hungry that you can eat a huge animal like a camel? No. So what is happening here? It is exaggeration. And then what is exaggeration called? Yes, it is called option number 1, hyperbole, exaggerating. So what is exaggerated here? Hunger is exaggerated. Example number 13. The river flowed as silent as the night. So I'm sure you know the answer now. So which one is it? Yes, it is answer number 2, simile. Why? Because there is comparison between the river and the silence of the night. The silence of the night is compared to the river. Okay, or you can say the silence of the river is compared to the silence of the night. So it is simile. Coming to the last few questions for today. Question number 14. Oh Lord, what have I done to deserve this? So see, it is a very strong statement. And it has also got an exclamation mark. So it is an example of option number 4, exclamation. Why? Because there is a strong statement with an exclamation mark here. Oh Lord. Alright, coming to the next example. Example number 15. He rode faster than the wind. Here also there is a little bit of exaggeration. So what will it be? It will be example number 1, hyperbole. Why? Because his ability to ride fast is exaggerated. Okay? Coming to the next example, example number 16. The whole vessel shook with shivering shock. Now the way I am saying this and the way I am stressing on certain sounds, you will know that it is not hyperbole, it is not simile, it is not exclamation, but it is option number 3, alliteration. Why? Because the sound of the letter S or sh is repeated in shock, shivering, shock, and shook. Okay? The second last question for today, question number 17. Opportunity knocks at the door but once. Now this is a proverb. It is an idiom, which means that once you get a chance and you let it go, that chance never comes back. So opportunity knocks at the door but once. Let us see what it is. So opportunity knocks at the door. So is it hyperbole? Is it personification? Is it alliteration or exclamation? It is personification, because opportunity cannot knock. So an animate action of knocking is said to be done by opportunity. And the last and final question for today, question 18. It crackled and growled. So there is something related to, yes, sound. So is it onomatopoeia 1, personification, alliteration or exclamation? It is 1 onomatopoeia. Why? Because the word crackled and growled indicate sounds. Okay children, so this was this beautiful video on figurative words. We tried to understand what the meaning of figure of speech is, and we looked at various figures of speech like alliteration, repetition, personification, simile, metaphor, hyperbole, onomatopoeia and exclamation. And we also did many sample questions together for practice. Okay, so that is all for now children. Now after you finish watching the entire video, I have got certain tasks for you to do. So let me now tell you what these tasks are going to be. So children, now you have watched the video. So after you watch the video now, you will have to complete a few simple tasks. Now you might have watched the video on your computers or your laptops or your mobile phones. Now after you watch the video, what will you do? You will please go to the description box which is given below the video. So what is the description box? See, the description box looks like this. Alright, and after you go to the description box, you will see that there are a few questions there. Now what are these questions about? These questions are about the lesson that we just learned or the video that you just watched. So what will you do? You will think back properly about the lesson and you will try and answer these questions and note down the answers in your notebook if you want. Okay? After that, we have another task waiting. You will also click on the link which you will find in the description box to fill up the Google form. So now what is the Google form children? It is nothing but a simple form. There are a few simple questions there about the video which you just saw and also about yourself. So these are the tasks now that you will have to complete after you watch each video. So children, wasn't that a very interesting lesson? I'm sure you learnt a lot of new things in this lesson. If you have liked this video, please hit the like button and also subscribe to my video so that you will get to see all the videos which I keep posting regularly.